guess you have already been told, so I'm representing the Russian Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed community,
Yep.
so all the fans and so on. And we've got lots of questions to you about the movie, but we had to narrow it down into just a few, and we'd like to start from the main one, and it is, do you have any kind of formula for an ideal video game-based movie? Because it's a really hard thing, apparently.
Well, I think you just need the trust of the originators of the game. So, you know, Ubisoft were incredibly open for us to make a film and a narrative that was sort of fresh from any of the games that they'd done before. So, you know, we created new characters and a new timeline to go to in Assassin's Creed, so that, you know, the film had its own, I guess, swagger. You know, so I think having the ability to be able to sort of see it as a film and not to be an appropriation of the game was really important.
Они не должны заполучить яблоко. Тамплиеры используют его против нас. Что дальше, новенький? Дадим бой.
Then what about the main message of the movie? How do you think what it is?
Well, I think it's about how everyone has a sort of destiny and fate in them, and, you know, the film is an origin story. It's definitely about a present-day man who has no idea what he's capable of and what the possibilities are within him, and he discovers through the animus that he's not only an assassin but a leader of assassins, and you know, that sense of being defined by your own history. And having a relationship with your kind of genetic memory, I always thought was the most interesting thing about the game, and the ideas in the game. And then I think that war and battle between assassins and Templars, you know, free will and control, I think is so complex and interesting. It's not about light and dark. You know, both sides have very compelling reasons for believing in their ideologies. So, you know, I think there are many facets to the game, which is interesting. But I think they're the two main ones that we definitely sort of focused on.
Мы действуем во тьме, чтоб служить свету. Мы ассасины.
But is there anything in the movie you would like the audience to pay attention to, both in terms of, you know, the visuals and in terms of the greater meaning?
Well, that I think that your blood is never dead, that you live on. You know, I think that, you know, I was very moved by that idea that you know, you're just not buried in the ground, that your blood is passed on to your children, and they then pass it on, and actually in that blood carries all your experiences in life. So you have a responsibility to live life in a certain way, to carry it on. So I think that to me has always been at the core of the film and what's interesting about it.
Yeah. So the grand idea is that everyone has a history behind them and a history of their own. And one of the unique aspects of the Assassin's Creed franchise has always been history. And how did you come up with the idea of bringing the core of the movie back to the times of the Spanish Inquisition?
That was in the script when I came on board that Michael had developed with Ubisoft. I think it was a time period that hadn't been explored in any of the games, so we just quickly grabbed it because it is so rich. And I think it's a really volatile time in history. You know, the religious kind of persecution and discord was just a great kind of climate for the assassins to rally against. And it's just beautiful. It's, you know, the Spanish culture and the art that was created in that particular kind of time was, you know, pretty extraordinary. So we knew that it was something that would add an enormous kind of visual splendor to the film by setting it in that period.
История нашего мира – это история насилия. Человечество словно стремится к самоуничтожению. Но существует артефакт, известный как яблоко Эдема. Любые порывы к независимости и сопротивлению будут нами подавлены.
do you think that the movie is going to be something unique and groundbreaking, especially in terms of, you know, the movies that have been set based on the video games?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's a film. You know, I do think it's not trying to tick all the boxes from the game. So I'm hoping that the characters are complex enough, and I think the ideas are interesting enough. I think we've tried to ground it as much as possible in a real world and done all the stunts for real, and really celebrated, you know, aspects of the game and what assassins can do in the game, and tried to execute them for real in the film. So, you know, hopefully there's a kind of edge of reality to the film that feels a bit different from maybe previous video game films.
Yeah, that's true. So, of course, the movie is going to have a great impact on the franchise, like in general and in future. But do you think that it will influence the games themselves and bring some new elements? And what would you personally like to see in future games, like something that was taken from the movie itself?
Well, I'm really proud of our Animus.
Yeah.
Like I think the way it interacts in a kind of virtual reality way with those that are in it, I think is really interesting. So, you know, we've been talking. I think Ubisoft are really, you know, interested in that design concept as well. So whether there's elements of the Animus that they kind of take into the next games, I mean, we would be really excited to see that.
Yeah, true. It was really spectacular.
Yeah.
Это устройство Animus. То, что вы увидите и почувствуете, это воспоминание человека, который умер 500 лет назад.
Да что вам нужно?
Ваше прошлое.
Постойте, нет!
And finally, the last question. Did you ultimately enjoy working on this movie, and would you like to work on something like that in future?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I think to work on this scale and to work with Michael again, and you know, and such an extraordinary brand as Assassin's Creed, I felt very privileged to sort of be entrusted with that brand, and you know, it was pretty remarkable shooting the sort of action sequences that we did. You know, I'd love to, if the film is successful, to make another one, especially with the knowledge that I have now of making these sort of films. You know, and it's got a very, you know, you could go in many different directions with a second, third film in regards to time periods and evolving those characters. But yeah, we'll see how it goes, and yeah.
True. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
То, что я видел, я будто прожил.
Так и было.